Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make this super cute strawberry shoulder bag. This project should only take you about 2 hours and maybe less if you're used to crocheting or if you just move fast at this point. I'll also share with you a few adjustments for something like the strap in this video, but if you want to make it exactly the way I'm showing it off right now, do everything I do exactly and follow the directions that I list in the beginning. This little bag can fit your phone, your chapstick, whatever makeup you bring, your AirPods, all that sort of stuff. And if you want it to be a little bit bigger, I'll tell you how to do so as well. But I think it's like really cute and whimsical at this size. Good luck! Pause and screenshot at any point here for pictures of the directions, just so that way you don't have to go back and forth throughout the video to look at them if you feel like you need a reference. I do list the steps above each part though. Listed on screen is the materials now. If you want to switch up some colors, go ahead, but this is exactly what I use for mine. Today's video is divided into 2 parts: the body, the berry itself, and then the strap, the little stem, and the leaves. So this is part 1, where we're going to start with the magic ring with 6 double crochets. So to do a magic ring, I've actually explained in my big tutorial video, but simply wrap it around your fingers, insert your hook, and pull the bottom strand on top, and then do a tiny little chain after twisting your hook. Since we'll be using double crochets, you're going to chain 1 extra after the ring is made, so there's a little bit more height to your yarn. From there, you're just going to insert 6 double crochets inside of the ring itself. So if you've never done this before, you would double crochet the same way you've done into a stitch, but this time directly into the center of the circle, being sure to hold on to that little pulley piece of string there, so that way nothing comes undone as you're making it. Once you're done with all of those, you'll simply slip stitch and chain 2 to start your next row. Pull the string in the back to tighten it all together. Your second row is going to be an increase row where we do 2 double crochets inside of each stitch. If you lose count at any point and need to go back, just make sure that you have 12 stitches after this row is done. We're also going to start adding the little strawberry seeds here, so what you're going to do is take some white yarn, and I'll show you how to kind of connect them together. So I use an unfinished double crochet so that way the yarn kind of stays in a line. So see how there's only 2 loops on my hook here? That's when I connect the white piece, so the very top of that stitch looks a lot cleaner than it would if I were switching after the double crochet. Once it's connected, you're just going to do 1 double crochet with the white for each seed, continuing with the pattern itself. And each time you do this, you don't finish your double crochet again. You leave it open like so. Then you're going to go back in with your red to close it off. And again, this keeps it so it's just a straight little line instead of it being like a weird diagonal color change. For the rest of this row, you're going to add 3 of these little seeds wherever you see fit. I think I did like 1 every 4 for mine, but you can simply just change it up to however many seeds you want or don't want in yours. After the row is done, you're going to slip stitch and chain 2, same thing we'll be doing in every single row from this point on. Row 3 is going to start the extremely common pattern of doing a double crochet and then an increase and then repeating it all the way around. This is what makes your circle bigger than what it was in the last row. As you do this all the way around, you're going to want to start adding your seeds in between where they were in the row prior. So see how I'm lining it up about midway through the other 2 seeds before the little white stitches at the top? That's how you're going to be doing it for the rest of this project. You don't need to count anything specifically. There's no like specific amount of seeds that you need for it because it is a natural fruit. They occur wherever they need to. Simply, if you feel like you need to add one, go ahead and throw one in there, but continue with the pattern of double crocheting 1 and then increasing 1. When you're done with this, slip stitch and chain 2, and you'll start to notice the shape of the bottom of the strawberry is forming. You want this inside out still though. Row 4 is the second in the pattern of doing double crochets followed by increases. In this row, you'll be doing 2 double crochets before your increase, also switching out between red and white to add seeds whenever you need. Piece of advice to use throughout the rest of this project: if you lose your spot in between your double crochets, so let's say you can't remember if you've done 1, you've done 2, etc., you can actually look at the stitches for the previous row and count in between them. It's very easy to actually tell as you go through to see if you've only put 1 double crochet or 2 into a spot, so you can always look back to reference it that way, just so that way you don't end up adding too many plain double crochets before your increase, or like 2 increases back to back. It's just good to keep track of your work that way so you don't lose your spot. Once again, just like the other rows, once you're done, you're going to slip stitch and then chain 2 to prepare for the next row. Also, see all these little white lines? That's just what connects your seeds together. Once we flip the bag back right side out, you will not see them, so it won't matter. The inside will just be a little bit messy, but do not worry about it at all. It looks totally fine on the outside. Row 5 follows the exact same thing as row 4, but now double crocheting 3 times instead of only 2. Again, as you're going through this, do not put too much effort into making your seeds perfectly aligned or anything. Just add them in between the spots you already have. It will look super natural this way and not like you decided to randomly count everything out and it's like perfectly symmetrical and kind of awkward looking. It's like too geometric that way, so I recommend just doing it randomly to make that like cutesy, natural strawberry look. Once you're done, again, do your little slip stitch and your chain 2, and now you can really see the shape of the strawberry starting to form. Continuing with the pattern, row 6 will be 4 double crochets, then an increase, and then continuing with your seeds. Also recommend taking some time to make sure that everything is untangled. Mine were getting pretty jumbled up, so I changed the way I was holding the yarn together and switching the colors back and forth. I also took the time to take in that long piece of yarn from the magic ring and then re-tucking it in and kind of weaving in the end before I cut it, just to make it a little bit shorter and easier to deal with. This sort of maintenance just helps you keep track of your project, and you'll notice how even the white yarn that connected the seeds together starts to look a little bit more uniform after I change up the way I'm holding things and how I've organized my yarn. And again, just to weave in your ends, you can just slide it through any pieces of yarn that you can get a good grasp on, keeping it on the inside part. So if you push it through both sides, you'll end up seeing it when you flip the project inside out. But if you can keep it on the outside half of each stitch, you'll never see it on the inside. Then you can continue. At the end of your row, you will slip stitch and chain 2, just like we've been doing. And when you lay your project flat, you'll notice that we now have this like almost 90-degree angles worth of an opening here. This takes us to row 7, where we'll just be double crocheting straight right all the way around. And doing this stops us from opening up the bag anymore, so the angle won't get any wider. It will just make the bag taller. Again, making sure you swap out for your seeds here and there. You're basically just double crocheting, doing no increasing, no counting, no nothing. Just going straight across the entire row. You'll end this row the same way we did the other ones, with a slip stitch and a chain 2, noticing that your bag is now taller rather than wider. That 90-degree angle sort of stays the way it was before. To continue this, row 8 will be the exact same as row 7, simply just double crocheting all the way around to heighten the bag a little bit more. Don't forget to do your seeds in between. Don't add too many or too little, just do whatever feels right. Close off your row the same way we've been doing, and now you have a bag that's getting even taller, more noticeably in my opinion than the last row. Row 9 will be our final heightening row, so you'll just be doing another double crochet all the way around. Nothing new, same as we've been doing. Afterwards, I recommend laying it out. This is one of those variance parts where if you would like your bag to be a little bit taller, go ahead and add some more rows to it. If not, continue. For row 10, we're going to be going back to that double crochet increase pattern from before, this time doing 5 double crochets before your increase. We're doing this because even though the bag is looking good and tall, a strawberry is a little plump on the top as well. So we're going to do a little bit more increasing before we finish her off. At the end, the change won't be too noticeable yet, but after the next row, you'll really see that these increases were worth it for this part. So we're going to do one more row just like this. Row 11 will be the last in this pattern of doing a double crochet and then an increase. So this time around, we will be doing 6 double crochets followed by your single increase. Again, keep up with your seeds. Don't worry if they're not even. The whole shebang, same as it was before. Just keep going as you were. From here, you can really tell that we needed that little extra oomph to make it plumper on the top, and after this, we'll start kind of rounding it off. We'll now be working to do some decrease rows to make the top of the strawberry a little bit more rounded off rather than just having a straight edge. So to do a decrease, since I haven't really described it in this video, what you do is very similar to just a regular double crochet. However, you're going to be inserting your hook through 2 stitches rather than just the 1. So to do this, you're going to yarn over and then simply insert it into the first stitch the same way you normally would. However, rather than pulling back out, you're going to push through the stitch behind it like so. You'll pull through afterwards and then finish off just like a normal double crochet. This sort of cinches in those 2 stitches and makes it just a little bit smaller. So when we do one of these every few times around, it'll be a little bit smaller afterwards, kind of changing it from the angle going outwards to the angle going inwards. If it comes up that you're doing a white seed on one of the decrease rows, you simply change it out the same way we've been doing the whole time, and then just continuing normally. There is no difference between doing it as a regular double crochet or as one of these decreasing double crochets. And then once you're done, you can kind of see how it faces inward now rather than before when it was going out. We're going to do this one more time to really seal off the top and give it that like nice flat rounded strawberry look. Similarly to how we added a double crochet in between increase rows, we'll be subtracting one in between decreasing rows. So for this time around, you'll be doing 4 double crochets rather than the 5. Again, everything else stays the same, adding your seeds in between, changing colors if you need to. Nothing else is going to change for this part, just go around normally. Then when you're done, you'll notice these cute rounded edges at the top of your strawberry. Row 14 is the final row for part 1, and it is just a simple double crocheting all the way across or around. Add your last row of seeds, make sure you're not skipping any stitches, and just simply go from one point to the other. This is a nice little way to seal off your project before we add the next row. Once you're done with your row, you can finally turn your strawberry inside out and take a nice look at all of your hard work. It will look super cute, and if everything is the way you like it, you're going to make sure that you cut your red and white yarn from here. You can weave in the edges whenever you please. Moving on, welcome to part 2 of the video where I show you how to make the little leaf crown and the stem or the strap for your bag. The first thing you need to do here is to count around the opening hole for where you'll be putting your stuff into the bag. If you followed all the same steps as I did, you'll end up with 36 stitches. If not, you're going to want to readjust, and I'll show you kind of the method that I used, but for now, just chain the amount that was at the opening of your bag. Since it's hard to kind of divide these up into rows from this point on, I'll just be listing the step in the upper left-hand corner. So you're going to start with a slip knot here and then get ready to chain 36 or whatever your opening hole was. If you've never done a slip knot or chain before, just watch what I do and slow the video down if you need to for that part. Once you're done, you need to line them up this way so that your pieces don't kind of fold over themselves. You want them flat so when we loop them together, as I'm going to show you, it comes out really nice and not rolled over itself when we do together. So add 1 extra chain to make sure we have a spot to loop them through each other, and then push the hook through the back stitch like so, making sure that they line up with no twists. Once they're together, you can slip stitch again through both of these, and there you go. You'll chain 1 extra so we can start the next sort of row per se afterwards. So do your chain 1 and then we'll continue. We'll be using half double crochets to do this like thickening of the circle. Simply loop over or yarn over, pull through like a double crochet, but rather than pulling through 2 and then 2 more, pull through all 3 at once. And then you're going to go around and continue to do this until you reach the other side, where you'll slip stitch it together same way as we've been doing. Be very careful with this part to make sure you don't accidentally skip a chain, and if you can, tuck in the edge as you're going like I'm doing. If not, you can weave it in later. Find your first spot and slip stitch like we were doing the whole time before this, and then you'll just chain 2 like we were going to do a normal row of double crochets afterwards. To show you how I figured out the dimensions for the petals in case your opening was different than mine, I drew it out like so. I knew I wanted it to be divided into 4 quadrants with probably 2 petals in each. I knew that 36 divided by 4 would be 9, so I used that to kind of draw it out. That being said, pay close attention to what I'm doing and also the directions to angle this all correctly. 8 times in a row, you're going to be double crocheting 5 and then chaining 1 to turn your work afterwards. This is the starting portion for the first and for the rest of the petals, but just for each one individually. After you do your extra chain, you'll be turning your work around to work on 1 petal at a time. Once you're turned around, we're going to do a single slip stitch, followed by 3 double crochets and another slip stitch. This kind of makes this into a little triangle shape for the petal. And then after this mini row, you'll be chaining 1 again and turning your work 1 more time so we can continue elongating just the 1 petal before doing 2 at a time or 3 at a time. We're just taking it really slow and a 1 step at a time process. So chain and turn it again, and then make sure to slip stitch into the right stitch. You can see it looks a little bit better than the 2 on the ends, which we'll take care of in a minute. So slip stitch and then do a triple crochet, which is just wrapping around twice and then treating it like a normal double crochet, pulling through 2 and 2 again. Then you'll slip stitch once more. After you've done your last slip stitch, rather than skipping and just having a huge piece of yarn to cut or weave in, we're just going to slip stitch down the left side back to the main row itself. So you can insert this wherever. I was doing about 3 per each petal, and simply just going in, pulling through until you're back at the bottom of the main piece. Find that to keep up with the pattern, every 2 petals you'll be skipping 1 instead of inserting into the same stitch like I'm doing right here. That's just because you want it every 9 and not just on top of each other, or you'll have leftover chains at the end. And then just to show you, see how instead of going into that stitch, I'm skipping 1? That's what you'll be doing every 2 petals, just so that way you're keeping it in clusters of 9, so that way it's no leftovers at the end of each little part. And then finally, at the very end of this part, you'll slip stitch down your final petal, and instead of needing to skip anything, you're just gonna line this little slip stitch up with the first stitch that you started, so that way it becomes one cohesive crown of leaves and nothing is apart from one another. You'll chain 1 after this and then cut it, pull the yarn through, and weave it in. When it comes to weaving in ends, I personally just like to use my hook and pull things through. I think it's a lot simpler and less time consuming than using a darning needle is. Plus, I think you can save more yarn by cutting less of a huge piece off. This kind of is just easier for me, but you can do whatever you feel the most comfortable with. To use my method, I recommend just choosing another little piece like this on the inside so nothing shows up on the outside, and just pulling it through with your hook as many times as you need to until it's gone. When you're done, line it up with your bag to make sure that they're approximately the same length. So to attach your leaves, you're going to start by lining it up the way you want it to look on the outside, and then flipping it inside out, keeping both pieces attached like this. This makes sure that whether or not you're sewing it or stitching it on, you don't see anything left over on the outside and all the messy parts are on the inside of the bag. When it comes to choosing whether or not you're going to be sewing or using a slip stitch like I'm about to be doing, just do whatever your preference is. I like this a little bit better because it feels a little stronger in my opinion than just sewing it on would be, but everybody sews their things as well, so really it doesn't matter either way. To use my method, simply make a little slip knot and then find a spot anywhere really at the top of the hole for your strawberry and insert your hook. You're also going to be pushing your hook through one of the stitches at the top of the crown of leaves like I'm doing, and then putting your slip knot back around your hook and tightening it. If you need an example, just watch the video while I have it slowed down to normal speed, but you're simply just going to pull everything through and then insert it back through the next stitch on both halves like I'm doing here. You want to make sure everything is lined up so nothing has overlap, but even if it does get a little wonky at the end, don't worry about it, just make sure that it's not too small. If your crown of leaves is too small for the crown of the bag, then you're going to have a bit of an issue. So just go about this normally, see where you end up. If you have to redo anything afterwards, it is a bit of a pain, but it's worth it to make sure that everything looks good. Also, if you're doing my method, do not forget any of the little white seed stitches. Some of them get kind of clumped in because of how you pull the yarn taut afterwards, but regardless, keep doing it this way and eventually you'll make it all the way around and this part will be done. At the end, you can slip stitch it together and then do an extra chain 1 and cut your yarn. I like to take these 2 little pieces left over and tie them together to kind of cinch it all in, per se. Then you can just cut up your edges and weave them in however you please. After you weave in all of your edges, you can flip your project inside out and get a cute look at what the bag looks like without the strap. What you'll notice is because of the way we attach them, there is a small red ring at the top, like there. We're going to cover that up in the next step, so don't worry about it yet, but make sure that the petals are as long as you want them and that everything else looks super cute, because we can't really go back after we do the next few parts. To make this little crown cover, you're going to start with a slip knot outside of the bag itself. We're going to attach it through the back of the bag, so you'll be inserting your hook through the red part with this part on the inside so we don't end up seeing it. So once we go all the way in here, I'll show you how to put your hook through so that way everything lines up. Rather than just going through the red where there's like a weird loop of emptiness between, we're actually going to push it through the top of the green part first and then back through the red part, making sure we get both loops on the hook. After this, you'll attach your slip knot and pull it taut, and then start going all the way around with single crochets. Try and keep that little tail of the slip knot where you can tuck it into the ends as you go. This way it doesn't have to be weaved in afterwards. To do a single crochet, you just go through the next loops like I did the first one. So through the green, through both of the red, and then pulling through like so, making sure that's underneath so it stays in or tucking it in. Then we're going to, instead of doing a slip knot, pull through both pieces instead of just the one. Continue to do this all the way around until you've covered every single piece of red with the green to match the leaf crown. At the end of this, you'll slip stitch into the first one just like we've been doing and pull it shut like so. After this, we need to add the strap. It consists of one long chain, depending on how long you want it to be, connecting it to the other side of the bag, and then half double crocheting for 2 rows to give it thickness. I chain 75 for this part, and then don't go directly across the bag to connect it before I add the 2 chains of double crochets, which I'll show you afterwards. So to explain this a little better now that we have a visual, I'm going to be inserting my hook a little bit before where you would think to insert it to make this piece go right across. Since we're going to be adding pieces like this, a thicker sort of strap, it'll be weirdly off center if you just go from one side or the other. Start this part by inserting your hook where you want the thing to start, basically. So if you can see kind of how I'm angling mine, I know I'm going to have 2 more rows, so I line it up this way. Then you want to make sure that your 75 chain, or however long you made it, is laying completely flat so it doesn't twist on itself once it's all connected. Once everything is laid out the way I'm showing you here, simply fold it over and attach it to your hook like so and pull it through the other side of the bag. For your 2 half double crochet rows, you're going to make sure that you insert it into the next stitch on the crown first and then go back into the row itself. So simply pull one through and do a little single crochet, then you'll begin to half double crochet all the way around. Again, half double crocheting is the same as a double crochet, just pulling through all 3 instead of 1 at a time. When you get to the end of this first half double crochet row, make sure to not skip anything on your chain and then insert it back into the bag and spin it around to continue the same process. At the end here, make sure that you slip stitch 1 extra, then chain and pull it shut, finishing up your bag. Here's where you want to weave in that extra end. You should only have that singular green piece left that hung out at the end of the last row. Simply weave it in any way you please, just make sure you can't see it from the outside of the bag. And with that, congratulations, you are done with your project. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I upload every Tuesday in the afternoon, and follow me on Depop and Instagram. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye bye!